There we go. Welcome to it. The next of our live Bonitas Comrades Marathon webinars. It is 2020. Welcome to it. My name is Brad Brown. We've got the Comrades coach, Lindsay Parry, with us. Lindsay, how's it going?
Very good, Brad. We were just saying off air how excited we are to get these things going. So, good to finally be in front of the camera and talking to the people that are gearing up for the Comrades 2020.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that it's 2020 again. Before we get into what we're going to be covering tonight and into the sort of meat and potatoes, so to speak, please let us know that you can see and hear us. All you need to do is in the comments below, let me know where you're joining us from. If you're in South Africa, tell us what town or city you're in. If you're joining us from around the world, because I know we always have a lot of people from around the globe on these live streams as well, please do let us know where you're joining us from. And I see a lot of people are tagging friends and giving us likes and hearts and thumbs up. Really appreciate that. That really does help us get in front of more runners just like you as well. And before we get into tonight's program, if I could ask you to please just, if you wouldn't mind, if you're in a group where there's runners, whether it's a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group, whatever it is, please just hit the share button that's below this video now and share it with your running buddy so that they don't miss out on this. I see there's lots of messages coming through. We've got Briley Becker, who's in Kloof in KZN. I nearly said Kloof, but it's definitely Kloof. Lindsay, it's Comrades, so it's Kloof. We've got Teresa, who's in Durban. Rob's also in Durban. Kirsty, who's in Namibia. How's it, Kirsty? Nice to see you on as well. Mosai is on as well. So it looks like everything's working the way it should, which is fantastic. All right, just to go into some of what we're going to be going through tonight, I wanted to share some, just a little bit of housekeeping before we get into pretty much everything that we are going to be chatting about this evening. And what we're going to be looking at is where you should be right now, what you need to be focusing on the next 4 weeks, how to plan your races in the build-up to Comrades, particularly your qualifier and your ultra. And then we're also going to be touching on, is seeding important? And then we're going to share a whole bunch of resources with you that you can use that'll help you all the way through to Comrades 2020, which is awesome. All right, as always, comments and questions are welcome. So if we do touch on something and it raises a question, please do pop it into the comments below this video. We'll try and get to as many of those questions as we can tonight. If there are any questions, we'll stop a few times throughout tonight's presentation and we will be answering those questions. I'm glad Patrick Cravacher is joining us. I won't tell you where he's joining us from, but thanks for the message, Pat. Much appreciated. Who are we? All right, just to touch on it first, Lindsay, who I've introduced you to already, he's the official Comrades Marathon coach. I'm going to tell you some things now that he won't tell you because he's really humble, but I think it's important to know. He's helped a couple of winners at Comrades, and he's also helped thousands of amateur athletes, just like you and me, get their Comrades medal over the last more than a decade. Lindsay, how long have you been Comrades coach? 13, 14 years?
Yeah, I think this goes into the 12th year as the official Comrades coach. I think this will be my 12th. I haven't counted for a bit.
That's amazing.
All
right. Well, Lindsay's also been to 2 Olympic Games, 2 Commonwealth Games, going to a 3rd Olympics in Tokyo later this year as well. So you are in very good hands. He's also a pretty decent runner in his own right. Got a marathon PB of 2:45. That is seriously rapid. You might be wondering who's this mug that's talking. My name is Brad. I don't have a marathon PB of 2:45. I'm very much average, but have pretty much grown up around Comrades. My dad's got a green number. He's got 11. My brother's run pretty close to 10 himself. Comrades has just been part of my life for as long as I can remember. I ran my first one in 2010. And I am going back for number 4 in 2020. Before anybody asks, that's the plan. So far, so good. And if you've also been to any Comrades road shows over the years, you may or may not have heard me speak. I love Comrades stories. It's one of the things that I geek out on. And I wanted to share a short little quick Comrades story with you tonight before we get into what we're going to be chatting about and helping you get your Comrades medal. But this is a lady by the name of Carol Jarvis. She runs in KwaZulu-Natal and she's got an incredible story. She's pretty much had every single curveball that could be thrown her way in the build up to her Comrades journey, and it's a fascinating and inspiring story, and I wanted to share some of it with you this evening. So Carol grew up as an asthmatic. She was fairly active. She used to play field hockey, and she told me the story about how her dad used to stand on the side of the pitch and have to give her asthma pump halfway through a hockey match. That's how bad her asthma was. She's got kids as well, and in 1993, her then 5-year-old son Philip picked up a virus that left him brain damaged, and she pretty much had to care for him. He needed a full-time carer, and in 2004, she took up running just as a bit of an escape, and her goal was to run 8 kilometers, and she went on to run Comrades, and she's gone on and run numerous Comrades. She's had run six in all, and in 2010, or just before I get to 2010, I mean, everybody's got struggles with Comrades. Let me tell you, Carol wakes up at 3:30 in the morning so that she can train and be back by 6 a.m. to care for Philip. In 2010, just after her 6th Comrades, she was hijacked with her kids in the car. And she managed to get her kids out the car, but just emotionally, that really shook her up, and she really struggled with her running after that. So much so that she failed to qualify for Comrades in 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2015, and her running just really started to suffer. And then in 2015, she broke her wrist and tore her TFL in her hip as well. So things really weren't going Carol's way. She was desperate to get back to Comrades, but everyone around her was just telling her that she was too old and she was too slow. So she decided that she wanted to run Comrades again, and she went to one of the Comrades Marathon road shows, which Comrades put on around the country, and I'm going to share some details with you about them a little bit later on tonight. And at that road show, she made a decision that really changed her life, and I'm going to dig a bit deeper into that a little bit later on because it ties into sort of what we're talking about. But those road shows, you learn a hell of a lot, and that's why we started doing these webinars, is so that we could touch more runners, not just in South Africa, but around the world. And that's pretty much why we're here tonight, and I'll share the rest of Carol's story a little bit later on, so you need to stick around for that. But it is truly, truly inspiring. Lindsay, I'm going to bring you in here, and let's talk a little bit about sort of where we should be right now in our Comrades training. It's January. People are sort of back from holiday. They're back from their leave. They're back at work. Kids are back at school. Everything's back to normal. And this is where we start getting serious for Comrades 2020. Where should we be right now?
Yeah, so it does depend a little bit on where you are in the process, to be honest. With Comrades being in the middle of June, we're not quite in the same hurry to get going as we perhaps have been in the past, particularly when it was on the 31st of May. However, we do need to and we want to qualify, and we also have to bear in mind that the timing, which I'm going to talk about this in a bit more detail a little bit later in the webinar, but the timing is that we really want to be training our hardest between around about the 15th of March and the middle of May. So those are our peak training weeks. And so you can think that if we're going to be training way too hard now, that's going to turn it into quite a long year. And also, if you haven't qualified yet, you probably don't want to leave that process too long, because when we qualify, we tend to want to run the best seeding that we can. And of course, if you race a marathon very hard in March, that's going to compromise your ability to train in March and April. So really, where you want to ideally be around about now is either qualified towards the end of last year and happy with your seeding, in which case right now you're just going through a really gradual, systematic building up, getting your body ready for the training that's about to come, or you want to be quite far along in the process of preparing yourself for qualifying, so that you can get qualifying done sometime between the kind of end of January and the middle of February, at the very latest, the very beginning of March. You can give yourself 2 weeks to recover before you really get into the meaty training. So that's kind of where you want to be now. You want to be in the habit. You want to be starting to get disciplined, getting your routines going, waking up early in the morning, and you're either polishing up yourself for a qualifier, or you are just gradually building yourself up to get yourself to that peak training. But what we don't want is to be training flat out from January until June. You will just end up getting there tired, probably sick, probably injured.
Awesome, yeah, fantastic advice there. Keep the questions coming through. We've got some great ones. Lindsay, one question that pops up all the time on these webinars, and I'm gonna ask this question, but this applies to anyone who's struggling with an injury. And I know everyone thinks their injuries are the same and or different, and their situation is unique. But I'm gonna pop this question up on the screen so that we can put it up, and it's from Mbulelo. Mbulelo says, I have a quadricep tendonitis since November. Do I have time to get in shape? And this is for anybody who's struggling with a niggle. It doesn't matter what that niggle is. Lindsay, what's the advice when it comes to injuries, and why is it so important to get it sorted?
Look, the sooner you get it sorted out, the better. Okay, I'm sitting here with a calf strain, which I picked up on my very last training run on holiday. I have been for treatment, but I haven't been as patient as I should have been, and I've tested it every couple of days. And so this weekend I just made the smart decision, which is to say, look, we've got until the 14th of June, and we don't want to be sitting with this problem for months to come. So I've already reckon I've wasted a week more than I needed to. If I had just skipped 2 runs, instead of running every 4 days and just skip both of those, I would be running now with no injury. And so that's exactly it for this week. I'll jump on a bicycle. If it doesn't hurt, then I will cycle pretty hard just so I can get something going. But otherwise, I'm only going to start running at the end of the week. I'm going to do my rehabilitation exercises that I've been given by the physio. I'll probably go for another treatment. So the answer is yes, there is time. But you do need to get the injury sorted out. Obviously, if you've already qualified, that does take a lot of the pressure off. But even if you haven't qualified, get the injury sorted out. If you have to compromise a little bit on your qualifying time, so in other words, you're going to, instead of going for the best possible seating you can on the day, and you're just going to use your qualifying race as part of the preparation, so be it. But you're going to struggle to finish Comrades, you struggle to train for Comrades if you don't get whatever injury you've got sorted out now. Now is the best time because we do have loads of time.
Cool. Yeah, another question which I'll pop on. Mike is just saying, I'm going to pop this in. I'm not sure I understand fully, Mike, but I'm going to read it anyway. He's saying, please explain to viewers that can't see the comments column on the right of the video feed. They need to click on the video to go into the webinar room. If they don't see the comments column, they're not completely in. So, yeah, I'm obviously on it. I'm not in it. So hopefully that makes sense to people who are watching. Lindsay, question from KG Silabojo. And we are going to touch on this in a few of the things we're going to cover now. But KG wants to know, is seeding more important than ever since Pietermaritzburg is smaller and more congested with it being a down run this year?
Yeah, so I'm interested to find out if there are going to be some small changes made to the start, and particularly where we ran down onto the highway on the last Comrades, which worked really well. So for the last down run, the flow of the start and getting out of Pietermaritzburg was much, much better. But of course, then when we had to get back onto the route and off the highway at the top of Polly Shorts, it became extremely congested. So the bigger the race becomes, the more people that are on that road, the more congested it is. And of course, then it does become advantageous to be further ahead if you are capable of going faster. You don't want to do that to the detriment of your ability to finish the race. And what I mean by that is that once you've had a hard marathon, you can't keep running hard marathons so that you can save yourself 3 or 4 minutes and a little bit of flow on race day at the expense of your body. Because if you keep pushing the next race to try and improve your seating and the next race to improve your seating, you're going to arrive at Comrades regardless of what your seating is, and you are going to be spent, sick, injured, sore, super tired. And so seating is important, and we do want to have a decent crack at it around about now in the next couple of weeks. But once you've got your seating, you can't keep chasing seating.
Absolutely. And if you are really worried, Lindsay, I'm going to throw a bit of a shameless punch here. If you are really worried about the amount of time you're going to lose at the start, Comrades have got that amazing charity initiative that if you raise 6,000 Rand for one of the official Comrades charities, you get to start in the CC batch. And that saves you a lot of time getting over the start mat and with that congestion going through Pietermaritzburg. So really look into that. If you are worried and you think you might be a marginal finisher, it's definitely worthwhile. And $6,000 might sound like a lot, but we all have 60 friends, and if they each give us $100, there you go. There's your $6,000 done for Comrades. So that is fantastic. One more question, then we're going to get into what we need to be focusing on in the next 4 weeks. Lots more questions still to come, so keep them coming through. If you have posted yours, I'm scrolling through them, and we're going to get to them throughout the evening. Lindsay, Quibus is in Namibia. He's on the west coast of Namibia, and they have absolutely no hills. And Quibus, obviously, Namibia's not alone. There's a lot of people around the world and in South Africa who struggle with no hills. What do you recommend in place of hill training? Is treadmill running okay? Should they be cycling, or should they be doing gym work?
So actually, I recommend all three, but really treadmill is a great substitute for hills. What you don't get is the eccentric. So look, I know treadmills and anything that's driven by technology becomes more and more affordable. So I don't know how expensive the treadmills are that have up and down function, but if you are buying a treadmill for home and you are training for a race like Comrades, you really do want a treadmill that's got functionality for going downhill, because it's not just about preparing yourself for how hard it is to run up. The down Comrades has a unique challenge in that you do a lot of down running, especially after 60 Ks, and you do want to prepare yourself for that. Again, why did I say all three? Well, because the cycling component also helps to strengthen your quads for uphill running, and the strength and gym component in particular helps to fortify and prepare your legs for the downhill running. So it's a little bit of a combination of all three, and it's one of the reasons why the majority of my training programs are 4-day-a-week programs, so that they do afford the opportunity to do some strength training and to do some cross training.
Speaking of your training programs, I said that was the last question, but this one's pretty relevant to what we're talking about. Glynis wants to know, with your programs being time-based, should we worry about how many kilometers or miles we're doing in a week?
So that's actually not an easy question to answer anymore, because the reason why I went to time-based in the first place was precisely that. It was to get people to stop worrying about how many kilometers they've run. And I did it at a time where GPS technology was pretty rudimentary, and there were only a handful of units on the market, and they were a bit cumbersome and quite expensive. So now we have a GPS unit. So quite frankly, it doesn't matter what I prescribe the training in, because I'm prescribing it at a pace over time. Your GPS is going to tell you exactly how far you've run. So you will be mindful of how many Ks you've run, and you will be mindful of the pace that you're running at. The important thing is the reason why I prescribed in time all along was to get people to run easier on their easy days. So that is really the crux of it. If you are truly running easy, heart rate low, can hold a robust conversation, then it doesn't matter if you're keeping track of kilometers. The real crux of it is easy days easy, hard days hard. Simple as that.
Cool, Glynis. I hope that answers your question. All right, lots of great questions coming through. Lindsay, let's talk about the next 4 weeks, and we're going to break this down by medal, time, goal. Before we get into that, Lindsay, choosing the right program is important. So often we see Comrades runners going, you know what, I'm worried I'm not going to finish. I'm actually a 4:45 marathoner, but I'm going to follow the Bull Rowan program to make sure that I get my training, get my Comrades medal. That thinking is not necessarily right, because you are, as you say, you're running your training runs way too fast. You want to pick a program that's appropriate to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a very big mistake that a lot of people make is that thinking of, okay, well, I only want 10 hours, but if I train for 9 hours, that'll really make that 10 hours safe. And the reality is that actually you're putting that 10 hours in jeopardy if you aren't truly capable of 9 hours. Training for 9 hours, you are putting yourself at risk of getting injured. So be realistic. And I always tell people achieving your goals in running is really about three key components. We'll talk about all the other things that come and aid with that, but really it boils down to three things: being realistic about your target, putting in the work, and executing your plan on race day. Because you'll be very surprised how many people just absolutely ruin it by going off piece on race day, in particular running way too fast from early on. But those are your three core ingredients. Be very realistic about what you are capable of, match your training to that goal. In other words, choose the right program, and when race day comes, execute your plan accordingly.
Absolutely. All right, Lindsay, let's talk about the finishes, the sub 12 first up. The next 4 weeks, what should they be focusing on?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do quickly before I do that, Brad, is because one of the things that I wanted to talk about when we were talking about where are we now was to quickly touch on planning um, your race calendar. And that's not so much for me about when you have to do each thing, but it's really just to say to people that it's easy to get caught up in comrades and being led by the people in your club, or if you're in a foreign country, you know very little about the race, and there's some like salty sea dog who's run 13 comrades and he's giving you advice, or she's giving you advice, and they have forgotten what it's like to be a novice and really building up on your mileage. So really, for the majority of people running comrades, you need to run 2 marathons and an ultra, or 2 ultras and a marathon in your build-up. And those races need to be separated by a minimum of 3 weeks, but they can happily be separated by 4 to 5 weeks. So when you are going through looking at races for training purposes, spread them out so that your last one, being your ultra, so you want to do a run that's between 50 and 55 kilometers, and you want to do that between 5 and 6 weeks before Comrades. And then your others, you will populate backwards, and you want them to be between 4 and 5 weeks apart from each other. And I think that's really important when it comes to planning races. We don't overdo it. 5% of the field will finish in under 7.5 hours. And that 5%, they will be doing probably between 4 and 5 marathons and perhaps 2 ultras, all of them as training runs. But for the other 95% that are training for bull runs and finishing, you are looking at maximum of 4, but 3 is enough. 3 runs of longer than 42 Ks, and 4 at an absolute maximum. At the golden rule there is never within 3 weeks of each other, preferably 4 to 5 weeks. And then that will take me straight into where we want to be, or what we want to be doing for the next 4 weeks. So finishers, those are the guys that are going to be between 11 and 12 hours. Most of the people who fall in that bracket probably still need to qualify. A lot of the people in that bracket are still novices, and that finishers program that I do right only has qualifying taking place later towards the end of February. So if you've qualified, that's great. You can just afford to build up even slower. But if you still need to qualify, you really want to build on your success of the previous year, which is to say that you have run a half marathon, possibly a 32K race. So you know that you're actually pretty close to a marathon, and you're probably looking at being somewhere in the region of of 40 to maximum 55 kilometers. That's kind of by the end of this 4 weeks, you probably want to be around 50 to 55 Ks per week. Potentially your 1 or 2 longer weeks that are really going to gear you up for the marathon might be slightly longer, but as a general rule, that's what you're looking at, about 40, let's call it 50 to 55 Ks by the end of this 4 weeks, and you want to build through into that phase. The bronze medal, that's 10 to 11 hours. It used to be 9 to 11 hours, but that is now 10 to 11 hours. And there will be a number of people there who've qualified. And again, as I said, if you've qualified, it does take the pressure off. You're building up a little slower. So if you have qualified, you probably still fine being around the 40 to 50K mark. And by the end of the 4 weeks, you're just getting over that 50K mark. If you are looking to qualify, you probably want to be around 50Ks now, building up to 60s, low 60s. If you are looking to qualify towards the end of Febish. So you do want to be adding in some strength training, possibly putting in some hill training. But again, I would just go with your own personal experience as a runner, and particularly as a Comrades runner. So, if you have done a couple of Comrades, if you are a pretty experienced runner, you probably want to be adding in a bit of hill training around about now, and then you will gradually build up that mileage. Then we have a new medal. It's its second year in existence. Its first year for a down run, and that is called the Robert Machali, and that is between 9 and 10 hours. So it's after the Bull Roans, but before the bronzes. And it's, I think we needed to fill that gap. So I quite like this medal. I think most of the people in that category certainly have been capable of having qualified next year. So hopefully a lot of the people that are going for that medal will have qualified. However, you may be in that category where you might want to improve your seeding, or still needing to qualify. So going for around about a 4-hour marathon, you probably want to be hitting about 60s now, 65Ks, building up towards that marathon, getting yourself to around the 70K.
We seem to have just lost Lindsay, so I'm hoping you can still hear me. I will try and get him back on the line. Quick, let me know in the comments if you can still hear me. Give us a, hey Brad, we can hear you in the comments, and I will get Lindsay back on as soon as we can. Let me... Yep, there we go. It sounds like you can hear me. I'm just going to get Lindsay back on the line if that's good. Let me just open this window. Apologies about this. I guess it's one of the joys of technology, and some of you would know that we have been having some internet issues here in South Africa over the last week or so with undersea cable. Who knew we have an undersea cable? That's incredible. So, yeah, let's try and get Lindsay back on the line, and we'll continue where he got cut off. So he is ringing there now. And let's see. Let's hope they're not load shedding where Lindsay is. No, we seem to have got him back. Lindsay, you with us? Lindsay, you there? Lindsay, can you hear us? No, that's all good. I'm actually going to, I'm going to hang up again and we can just do the audio if that's good. Your computer's just frozen, so let me call you back. We will do just audio. I think that might be easier on the line as well. And then we can get him back on. Apologies once again about this, the joys of doing things live. Lindsay, you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. You were just saying, sorry, your computer just died.
Yes, it did. My PC ran into a problem and needs to restart. Anyway, I'm running the phone, so all good.
Right. So let me tell you where we heard up to. You were talking about the Robert Machali and how much mileage they need to be doing if they are building up towards a qualifier.
Yeah, so you should be doing probably around 60, 65 and building up to 70, 75, perhaps scratching the 80s, building up to your qualifier. And then as with the bronze medal, you want to be doing some strength type of work, building up to comrades, probably in the gym, but certainly doing some hill training. And then for the bad boy, the silver medal for the 5%ers, the people who don't have any friends or the people who don't want any friends, um, you want to be capable of a sub 3 hour marathon, and chances are you have done that or you are pretty close to it. So I'd say if you are building up and you've already got your sub 3 hour, sorry, I've skipped the Bull Roan. Let me keep this in the order. Bull Roan is also a fantastic medal. I actually love the Bull Roan. It is my personal favorite medal because while it is a tough time to run, and I think 20% of the field end up getting a Bull Roan, the thing about it is that at 6 minutes a K, there are a lot of people that aren't natural runners that can really put in a good shift, train hard, be disciplined, and have a pretty good chance of getting a bull run. So it's not a medal for everybody, but it is a medal for someone who's perhaps not always been a runner to really knuckle down and train for. So for that medal, you probably want to be around about the 70K a week mark now if you haven't qualified yet, building up to just short of 90. You probably don't want to quite get to 90. You're probably looking at 80, 85 is maybe a slightly better number. Obviously, if you have qualified already and then there isn't any real hurry to qualify, then probably now between 65 and 70, and certainly not building up more than 80 Ks before the end of the next 4 weeks, and then we will move into the silver. And for the silver guys, if you've qualified and you're building up slowly, you're probably running around about between 80 and 100 Ks a week. Certainly by the end of this 4 weeks, you probably want to be up to 100 Ks a week. If you're training for that sub 3 hour marathon, you probably are in the hundreds already or close to the hundreds, and you'll probably work your way to between 110 and 120 kilometers to try and get yourself to that sub 3. Of course, bearing in mind that you don't want to go too much more than that because, of course, if you're going to run 140 and 160K weeks training for the sub 3 hour marathon, you're not going to leave yourself much when it comes to March and April and early May, when you really want to be pushing it hard.
Absolutely. Lindsay, I know you mentioned sort of building strength and that sort of thing as well, and you mentioned strength training. We've put together a strength program at coachparry.com. You would have seen the URL on the screen a few times there. coachparry.com/strength is where you can find it. If I can ask, if somebody wouldn't mind just popping that into the comments as well. So if you want to click through, you can. It's http://coachparry.com/strength. That's where you can get those. Some great questions coming through. Leroy asking, is that mileage per week? Yeah, Leroy, it is per week. I know the first time I heard what the Silvers do, I realized why they don't have friends. So, Lindsay, let's get into some questions if that's cool. And this one is, sorry, I'm just trying to flick to the next slide so we can pop it up on the screen. There we go. It is from Jan, and I'm actually not too sure. He's saying on the official Comrades program on the Comrades website, he says there is a 4.5 hour run on the week of the 27th of April, and then a 50 to 55 the weekend thereafter. Isn't this too close together? That's worse than a back-to-back marathon. That if that is the case, that's not correct, is it, Lindsay?
So, sorry, what program is that?
The official finishes program on the Comrades website.
No, it may well be. I'm just doing some maths quickly here, so I can answer that properly. So that run, that 4.5 hours, is probably a 36 to 38 maximum training run. So no, that is absolutely fine.
Okay.
Yeah, if you follow the correct recommended training paces, then that 4.5 hours won't be a marathon. And I know 38 to 42 doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is a lot. Those 4Ks are where a lot of the damage is done. So yeah, you probably 4.5 hours, you can equate that to 35 and you'll be absolutely fine. It's enough.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, but I'm not a huge fan of looking ahead because I don't want to know what's coming. I'll focus on the next week and we'll worry about what's to come in March and April when it comes in March and April. Otherwise, it's just going to scare the living pants off me. Keep the questions coming through. If you've got any questions, you are more than welcome to pop them into the comments. I've also just had a look. We've had a few shares, but if you wouldn't mind, if you are in a Facebook group or on a WhatsApp group, please do share or share the stream into whatever group you are. All right, great question here. About doubling up on weekends, Lindsay. It's from Brand Mark saying, "Hi, is it advisable to do running on a consecutive running on a Saturday and a Sunday? I do most of my running on these days: 20Ks on a Saturday, 15 on a Sunday. Weekdays mainly strength training and gym, and a 5K twice a week. What's the deal with running big numbers on weekends, Lindsay?"
Yeah, so look, again, this is one of those things in life where we can pretend that we are very clever and that it was just a wonderful idea. But this is actually something that I stumbled upon by accident. So when I first came into this role 10 to 12 years ago, I actually believed in splitting the long run up. Um, midweek and then on the weekend. So you'd have your two longest runs, call it a Wednesday and a Saturday. But when I came into the role, one of the things that Comrades itself was looking for was to say to people, listen, Comrades is actually something that most people who set their mind to it can do. And people need to be able to look at a program and say, I can do that. And one of the requirements around that, of course, is that to be able to physically do it, you actually need to have the time. So that meant that when I was writing the programs, most people have got time on the weekends. And so this concept of back to back on the weekends came out because I was like, that is when a lot of people are going to be able to train. So initially, that was a very practical solution that we had going. And over the next 2, 3, 4 years, people just kept on sending me messages, email, stopping me in the passages, catching me on the beach. And they said, you know what? The thing that helped me prepare the most for Comrades, from particularly a mental point of view, but also physically, was the double weekend runs, the 2 runs on the weekend where I was doing the second run on tighter legs. So I found that to work extremely well. And so it's really a good way of training. In this particular instance, I would encourage slightly more mileage during the week. Not much, but I'd look at those midweek runs. Instead of 2 5K runs, I would look at doing an 8 and a 12. So we're really not talking about an enormous change there, but just that little bit more, 8 to 12, 8 to 12, and then your 2 weekend runs, obviously building up over time. So, you're going to, when you get into peak training, come March and April, those 20s are going to turn into 30s, and the 15 will probably turn into a 20. And then, yes, I highly recommend training for Comrades like that.
Awesome. All right. We've had a couple of questions regarding trail running, Lindsay. This one from Brian DeVale. Brian says, I'd love to incorporate as much trail running into my training as possible. Is it advisable considering the high risk of acute injuries? Also, is using heart rate or robust conversations the best way to ensure I run correct training pace as stipulated in the program? Two great questions there, Lindsay.
Yeah, so the off-road one, I love off-road. I think it's so good for runners, and I think it's especially good for ultra runners because there is a lot of variation and variability in terrain, which is actually quite good for us because when we're running on the road, we literally are like metronomic, and it's the same step over and over and over, and that can put a lot of repetitive stress on our joints, tendons, ligaments, muscles. So off-road really does alleviate that. Off-road also tends to be very up and down. So if you are running off-road, chances are that you invariably are running up some very steep hills or walking up them and similarly coming down. So trail really is good training for ultras. There is the acute risk, and I don't know if I would classify it as high, but that acute risk is there. So you do have to go into trail running, and you do have to be aware of the fact that as good as it is for ultra distance run training, the risk of injury is real, and we can't be completely careless about it. I mean, we do need to just be a little bit careful. And then, look, in terms of the training paces, of course, those training paces are typically built around people being on the slow end of those medals, okay? And the reason for that, very simply, is because when you're training, and especially when you're training hard, the margin for error is much better on the slow side. So if you are in fact running a little bit too slow for where you should be right now, you're still going to get really good aerobic gains. And those aerobic gains are absolutely crucial when you're training for the kind of race that we are training for. On the low end, the error is not forgiving. So if you are running too fast, you detrain aerobically, you overstimulate anaerobic metabolism, you increase cortisol levels, you exponentially increase the eccentric load going through muscles, ligaments, and tendons. So you are walking the tightrope when you're running too fast, and when you're running too slow, you are really not losing out on a lot. You might be losing out on a little, but you really aren't losing out on a lot. So it is advisable to stay in the training paces. Of course, if you are training for a bull run and you know that you are more likely to be running between 8:15 and 8:30, then yes, you probably will be absolutely fine around 5 to maximum 10 seconds per K faster than what's recommended in those training paces. So again, it all just boils down to getting into all the platforms where we are and finding out what that training zone or ideal training zones for you as an individual, and then always remembering that you are much better off on the slow end of those paces than you are on the fast end of those paces.
Yeah, you talk about the risk of acute injury in trail running. Gee, if you live in Cape Town, you've got the acute risk of getting blown into the ocean. All the Cape Townians will know what I'm talking about, with Bay to Bay getting cancelled yesterday. Kirsty wants to know, with regards to those long runs on the weekends, which one should be the longer of the two? Should you be doing the long run on the Saturday and the short one on the Sunday, or vice versa, or doesn't it matter?
It's probably better for you to do the longer one first and the shorter one second. But to be fair, it doesn't make an enormous difference. I would be slightly more cautious in terms of pace if you're consistently doing the long one on Sunday. So, I mean, I would make the decision on when do you have the most time. And if the answer to the question is you've got equal time on Saturday and Sunday, it's probably better doing long run Saturday, shorter one Sunday.
Talking of long runs, we've had a question about the Easter 100. For those of you who don't know, it happens in Johannesburg around the Easter break. It's 100 kilometers over 3 days. Wanting to know your thoughts on that. And Bonang also wants to know what's your take on the Cosmos 3 in 1. Obviously, there's lots of these sorts of races. The Cosmos 3 in 1, it's 70 odd Ks on one day. Lindsay, what are your thoughts on these? And then, there was another one for the beloved long runs in KZN as well, which also happen over a few days. Your thoughts on these as long runs?
Yeah, so the runs that happen over a couple of days, I'm not, I'm actually all right with. Again, it does depend a bit on your running experience. So if we use the Easter 100, because locally that's the one that's known the best, the Easter 100. Um, for an experienced runner to run between 80 and 100 Ks over the weekend is all right. For your novice, I would probably choose the Friday run, which is advertised as 45. It probably comes in at about between 41 and 42. And then I wouldn't do the Saturday run, and then I would do the 20 odd on the Sunday. The Comrades route testers, where they do different parts of the route over different days. As the Comrades long run, I would probably be quite okay with you getting close to 60 or 70 Ks over 2 days. Not the full 90 Ks over 3 days. I mean, again, not for finishes, that would be crazy. But the events that I don't like are these 3 in one day, where you run 70 kilometers in one day, starting with a marathon, then a half marathon, then a 10K. I've never been a fan of them, not for any level of experience. And there are people who swear by them, and that's fine. They must go and do them. I'm really not sold on those, and I think they present a really big risk for the average runner, for just too much fatigue and potential injury and illness.
All right, before we get back to the rest of the presentation, we've had lots of questions about cross training, Lindsay. Strength training, gym work, swimming, cycling. Here's one from Julie asking, is cycling detrimental to my running training? What are your thoughts on cross training in general, and what forms of cross training are better than others?
So look, I think, I know there's a lot of new people on this webinar, but really, if people go and find things that we've put out on the internet, written, podcasts, YouTube videos, we love cross training. Okay, for me, for the majority of the field, 80% of the Comrades field won't get much better by doing more running. In fact, doing more running will only expose you to unnecessary risk of injury. So once you're doing your 4 days a week of training, you've got a nice long run on the weekend, you're doing 2 other sessions during the week, your next level of improvement in running is going to come from doing cross training. Probably the best 2 options in terms of carryover to running in particular are doing something like elliptical or elliptical, or cycling. I mean, cycling has a pretty good carryover to running. I know cyclists disagree, but that's because they do no running. If you're doing a majority of running and then adding in the cycling, it really has a great carryover into running. And in particular, what it does is it makes you quite strong at hill running. So love cycling. Elliptical and elliptical are really good options, but swimming and rowing are also great options. So really non-impact cardiovascular exercise is really good cross training. And then strength training, particularly for the down run. Again, yeah, if you've got time for strength training, get in there. Glutes, quads, but yeah, all round legs, but really glutes and quads are if you can make them strong, it's going to do you big favors come Comrades race day.
Yeah, Lindsay, you mentioned like low impact cross training. Paul is asking about squash as cross training, and we've seen it so often as well in the build up to Comrades. Somebody doing something crazy as cross training, and then going and breaking an ankle or something. You've obviously you want to to benefit your training and not put you at further risk?
So squash, if you are a squash player, a league squash player, you've always played squash, then it goes right to my same argument with trail running. It is good. You are doing lots of lunges. There's good cardiovascular benefits to playing squash. They're really good strength, quad, glute, hamstring, calf strength benefits that come from playing a lot of squash. But you have to be aware of the fact that you can turn an ankle, twist a knee, pull a muscle. So that risk exists. So I wouldn't start squash for cross training if I was training for Comrades. But if you are a regular squash player and enjoy squash, then yes, it is good cross training with the asterisks of you could get hurt.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't start it the month before Comrades when you pick up a new sport because you're not running enough. Lindsay, staying on cross training, Gabby wants to know how much time for cross training per week makes it beneficial. I know you're a big fan of taking at least one full day off a week.
Yeah, so and I think, I mean, again, depending on people's time, cross training can also be done on the same day as running. It depends how your day and your work day and family life is structured. So I would say one day a week is beneficial. 2 days a week is probably more beneficial. Um, and that's what I would look at. I would look at filling up between 5 and 6 days, always leaving one day open for complete rest, but five to 6 days of training, and you could easily have 1 or 2 of those days where you do a little bit of cycling and running, or you do a bit of gym and cycling. So, yeah, I mean that's but I would say 20 minutes would be the minimum to have a positive impact. And I probably wouldn't recommend more than an hour and a half of cross training on any given day. Again, if you come from a background where you're a fairly experienced cyclist, then maybe you could probably do 2 to 3 hours without it being detrimental. But yeah, somewhere around the hour and a half mark is more than enough.
So many great questions coming in. Keep them coming through. Lindsay, let's get back on track with regards to the presentation. Recovery is vital. You've spoken about staying injury free and staying fresh and consistent. The role of recovery in Comrades training. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and that's what I was alluding to earlier on. I said, listen, the three main components here are setting an appropriate goal, and then number two is preparing adequately for that goal, and that's where recovery plays such an important role. And most people, sure, they know how much they need to run, or they can find out easily enough where from anywhere how much they need to run. But the reality is that unless we recover properly, we'll never get the amount of training that we need to or should do. And you will not find anyone anywhere except perhaps Alberto Salazar that would say that you're better off being overtrained than undertrained. You always, especially for a race like Comrades, you always want to be slightly under rather than slightly over. So you must recover. Recovery means resting, and that's one of the reasons why I'm really big on a 6-day maximum training week with one rest day. Again, well, I also put the majority of people on 4 days. But really, the key here is that when we get into March and April in particular, for those 8 to 10 weeks of peak training, you've really just got to focus on sleeping well, slightly more than you used to, and very importantly, eating well and watching what you put into your body. Eating, I like to refer to them as whole foods, and I'm not going to go into more detail on that because we are going to have a webinar, I think our next webinar, to be fair, where we are going to focus on nutrition because it's such a key part of recovery and making sure that your body can look after itself while you are training hard. But sleep getting into bed slightly earlier, making sure that your bedroom is dark, free of cell phones, flashing lights, red lights on a TV. Those things really make an enormous difference to your body's ability to recover. And then to just track. How am I feeling? How tired am I? It's okay to be a little bit tired. You're going to be training hard. So being a little bit fatigued is fine. We don't want to be exhausted all the time. We don't want to be struggling to fall asleep. So now this, obviously, if you have sleep issues, then that becomes a difficult one to track. But if you generally sleep fairly well, fall asleep fairly easily, and then when you're training really hard, you start to struggle to fall asleep, that's really a warning sign that you are training too hard. And loss of appetite. So if you are losing your appetite, when you're training really hard, you generally want more food and nutrition. So you do get hungry. So if you're never hungry and you're always having to force yourself to eat, those are real warning signs that you are not recovering adequately. And then, of course, my personal favorite and most obvious is if you are stiff, if your muscles are sore, that means you've overdone it. So you need to back off a little bit, perhaps do a little bit more cross training until that soreness subsides, and then get back into running. And whatever you did that made you really that stiff and sore, just tone that down a little bit and come back to it a bit slower.
Lindsay, while on that recovery thing, Gabby just asked, what's your take on sports massage for recovery?
Yeah, so look, I think sports massage is really great, but if you're not getting the first two right, so if you're not looking after yourself with rest and sleep and nutrition, I think then you're wasting your money with the massage. I mean, there's only so much massage can do, and in fact, one of my smarter, academically smarter athletes that I'm working with at the moment. We had a long discussion around recovery, and then he went off and did a whole lot of reading, and he came back and he said to me, "You know what, Lindsay, I've scoured the internet, and there's only one thing I can find that is absolutely proven to be beneficial recovery, and that's sleep. That's the most important." Okay, so sleep, nutrition, and then yes, compression gear and compression boots and all of those things probably do help a little bit. Massage, I personally find massage helps a lot to just release tension in my muscles, and also to free my hips up. I can run much better after I've had massage. But in terms of the actual day-to-day recovery and being able to keep going for 10 weeks, sleep and nutrition.
Absolutely. Keep the questions coming through. If you wouldn't mind as well, I actually forgot to ask at the top of the webinar, let us know what number comrades you are training for. If you're a novice, if it's your first one, if it's your first down run, if you're going for number 8, or if you're going for a green number 30, whatever it is, let us know in the comments what number you are going for. I'm just interested to know, and the guys at Comrades are keen to know as well, who is following us on these webinars. And then we're going to answer some more questions in a moment. We are running out of time rapidly, so I just wanted to get to those Comrades resources that I said I'd share with you. I mentioned it earlier on in the chat, the Comrades strength training plan that you're definitely going to need for the Comrades down run is at coachparry.com/strength. You can grab that after the webinar. I will pop it out on email as well. You can check out our weekly audio podcast, Run with Coach Parry, and then we've got a new podcast starting next week as well, which I'm quite excited about. Keep an eye on that. And then we have weekly videos that we put out as well, just with general training tips and that sort of thing. coachparry.com/YouTube is where you can find those. And then with regards to some other Comrades resources, obviously comrades.com is a great place to pick up a whole bunch of advice. The ladies' seminars are coming up again. Keep an eye on the Comrades website for those ladies' seminars that are happening around the country as well. And then the Comrades, the Bonitas Comrades webinars, the one that you're on now, we're doing a total of 6. So this is number 1. There's another 5 coming your way, and you can register for those at coachparry.com/webinar. And then the Comrades Marathon, the Bonitas Comrades road shows are coming your way as well. The first one gets underway on Wednesday, the 29th of January, so it's just over a week from now. And it is Run Zone Athletic Club in Gauteng who are hosting the first one. The full schedule is on the Comrades website. The second one is happening on Tuesday, the 4th of Feb. That one being hosted in KwaZulu-Natal by Hollywood Bets Athletics Club. And we'll give you the full schedule as we go, but those are the next 2 happening before our next webinar. So if you are in Gauteng or if you are in KZN, please go and meet Lindsay. He's going to be there. Nikki, the dietitian as well. She's going to be doing a bit on nutrition. And there's a whole lot more. You can meet the Comrades team, get your questions answered as well. So, yeah, all the details on the Comrades website, where exactly those talks are happening. And then I mentioned at the start of the story, I wanted to share Comrade Carol's story, and I mentioned the road shows because it was at that road show that Carol made that big decision. And after everything had been thrown at her, she decided that she was going to work with the team at Coach Parry. And the story does continue. At those road shows, she decided that she was going to get some help. And she worked with us in the build-up to 2018, and she just missed qualification in 2018. And if you remember, the last time Carol ran Comrades was in 2010. Then if you ran Comrades last year, you'll know that Comrades changed the qualifying criteria to a sub 450 marathon. So, the challenges and obstacles just kept being put in Carol's way. And in the build-up to Comrades 2019, Carol then went and qualified at Maritzburg last year, and the last time she ran a sub 450 marathon was 14 years ago. She went and ran a 4:48 qualifier. That was her fastest marathon since 2006 at the age of 58. So don't let anybody tell you that you're too old or you're too slow. If you put in the right work and you're consistent and you follow a plan, you can definitely reach your goal. And then Carol went on to Comrades, and she went and ran an 11:31:55. It was one of the most unbelievably paced Comrades. It was her second fastest Comrades time ever at the age of 58. Bear in mind, the last time she ran it was in 2010. So fantastic result from Carol. The story continues. She's heading back to Comrades this year. That's a photo of Carol crossing the finish line in 11:31:55, and that can be you this year. All you need to do is make sure that you get onto a plan that's going to take the thinking out of it for you, that shows you exactly what you need to be doing every single day, and we've got that for you over at coachparry.com. It's called the Comrades Marathon Training Roadmap, and what it's going to do is it gives you access to Comrades training plans that are suited for you, so that you're not guessing what you need to do every single day. There's training paces included for every single training run, so that you know exactly what you need to do every single session. Okay, you also get direct access to Lindsay and the rest of our coaches. That so that you can chat to them in the forums every single day if you want. You guys know what it's like. You're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, and everyone is giving you advice from 20 gazillion different sort of directions. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know what the qualifications are, where that is coming from. So get into the forum on the Coach Parry app and chat to the coaches as much as you want. We have weekly members-only calls, kind of like this, where you can hop on a video call and chat to one of the coaches, which is fantastic. And then also you have motivation and accountability. We've got over 1,000 other runners from around the world on that platform right now that you can chat to, and they all have your best interest at heart. So definitely check it out. If you want to find out more about it, you can follow a training plan that's proven and backed by science. It gives you direct access to the expert that wrote it, so there's absolutely no more guesswork. All you need to do is head over to coachparry.com/roadmap. That's coachparry.com/roadmap, and that's where you can get all the details. We are running a deal there at the moment where you can get a massive discount on 4 weeks access, so you can kick the tires and try it out, and we've got a 30-day money-back guarantee. So you've got absolutely nothing to lose. We'd love to help you get your Comrades medal. coachparry.com/roadmap. Keep those questions coming. We've got quite a few, which is fantastic. I see lots of people inspired by Carol, which is amazing. Her story is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to ask a couple more questions. Before we do that, though, just the next Comrades Marathon webinar is happening on Monday, the 10th of Feb. So it's 3 weeks from now. We are putting them 4 weeks apart, but because we came back quite late this year, we did this one slightly later than we wanted to. But Monday, the 10th of Feb, it's when it's happening. Same time. You can head to coachparry.com/webinar if you'd like to check that out. And get your questions in. If you do have any questions, I see lots of people are asking some great questions, and I see we've got lots of novices, a lot of people who are going for number 10, which is amazing. And then a question from Fahima. Lindsay, Fahima is saying, based on the 2 marathons and 1 ultra marathon formula that you spoke about a little bit earlier on in tonight's broadcast, is it okay to make the last longish run before race day 2 Oceans? She said Ramadan this year starts in the last week of April, hence the question. She's happy to take it onto the forum. Fahima, no, don't stress. This is a great place to ask it because I think we've got a lot of Muslim runners with us this evening. And she said there's a certain bracket of runners who are wondering the same. What are your thoughts on Oceans as the last long run? Is it too far from Comrades?
Look, it is. It's a little bit far from Comrades, but there are a lot of people who will run 2 Oceans. So the way that I would get around this, and I mean, I'll touch on Ramadan a little bit separately, because that complicates it just a little bit further. But if I was going to run Oceans, or not if, I mean, I am going to run Oceans, and there are lots of runners that will be running Oceans, then typically what I would do is that 3 weeks later, or 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, just depending on the exact timing, then I would probably look to do a run, and then it would depend a bit on the ability of the athlete and the medal that you're going for, but probably somewhere in the region of 38 to 45 kilometers. So either just short of a marathon or just over a marathon. And then that would be your last, in inverted commas, long run. But I certainly wouldn't do another 50 to 55, but I would do another longish one. So I think what I would look at, and that's maybe the part that Fahima can either provide just a little bit more information now, or we can chat about it during the nutrition next webinar, but also on the forum, is to just try and figure out then when Ramadan starts and ends, because in that situation with Oceans then being the last one, practically that actually does sound like a good solution, because doing a very long training run while you're fasting is not a good idea. So I think then perhaps like 4 weeks down the line, maybe splitting up a 45K run over 2 days, so that you can do that either after breaking fast. So in other words, eat something small after breaking fast, and then doing 20Ks in the evening back to back, or just doing it really, really early so that you can have a little something before you then go on to fast the whole day. But so I think there's some practical considerations to work through there. But I wouldn't encourage doing 60Ks or 50Ks long run in the middle of Ramadan. So then in that scenario, I think Oceans is probably a fairly good option as a last long training run.
Lindsay, I'm just looking at the time. We've run about 10 minutes over. I know people need to sleep, and sleep is important for recovery. So if it's cool with you, I'm going to ask 2 more questions, if that's okay. And like I said, I mean, I was just looking at the amount of questions and comments. We've had over 400 comments on this live stream tonight, which is incredible. Like, thank you for all the questions. And unfortunately, we can't get to all of them tonight. And that's why it's so important that you get onto a platform like the Coach Parry app and ask the questions there to get your individual questions answered. But this one from Hillary, and it's a follow-up from the point that I made about getting on the right program, Lindsay, that if you are a 440 marathoner, you shouldn't be following the Bull Rowan program. Can you give us a bit of a guideline of what your marathon times should be in order to follow the different programs, if that makes sense? Like, if your marathon program, if your marathon time is sub 3 hours, obviously that's silver. What is it for the rest?
So I think that's the finishes is self-explanatory. Obviously, if you qualify, you and you just qualify, you follow that program. For the for bronze, you want to be around about the 4.5 hour marathon mark, to have a realistic chance of running under 11 hours at Comrades. For Robert Machali, sub 4, so just under 4 hours to run, or have the ability to run a Robert Machali. For a Bill Rowan, you're talking about 330 to 340. You're starting to get a little bit borderline. So 330-ish or low 330s is what you're looking for. Yeah, and we didn't speak about the Isabel Ross Kelly medal, now that you mentioned that, but that is a medal for female runners who do not get gold, but who run under 7.5 hours. So, yeah, it's a really cool medal. And in terms of qualifying time, it's very similar to a silver medal. You want to be pretty close to or under 3 hours.
Cool. And then final question for the night, and this is quite a good one as well, Lindsay. Yaku van Tond is asking, what's the difference between the Comrades website program and the Coach Parry programs? I think it's a fantastic question.
Yeah, look, it's a really good question. And I can only answer it by saying that there are two reasons fundamentally why they are different. And one is that, I mean, I've been in the employ of Comrades for, as I said, almost 13 years. So I don't feel comfortable taking the program straight off the Comrades website and plonking it behind a paywall. So that is the one very practical reason. But the other one is also that I feel that on this platform where I've got, or not where I have, where people have got much better access to me, I can be a little bit more dynamic, and maybe risky is not quite the right word, but I certainly can be a little bit different because I know that people are going to ask questions. I'm going to interact with people a lot more. I'm feeding into weekly coaching calls where people can come in and ask whatever questions they want to. And so those two reasons are they are the reason why the two programs are not the same. Although when you really go down and add everything up, you will probably find that they're certainly not very far apart in terms of the total number of kilometers that will eventually have been run by the time Comrades come. So, yeah, I mean, that they will both prepare you to get across the finish line. There's no question about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the big things too, Yaku, is obviously the program on the Comrades website, you get it and you're pretty much on your own, whereas if you're using it on the Coach Parry app, you can connect your fitness device. If you've got any questions with regards to if your marathon that you're planning on running doesn't line up with the same dates, you can chat to Lindsay and the rest of our coaching staff, and they can help you out and sort of and talk you through adjusting that program on the fly, whereas you don't get that on the program with the Comrades website. And it's physically impossible for us to chat to everybody all the time in an open forum, and that's why we've been or had to build it into an iOS and Android app, so it's in your pocket. You've got access to the coaches every day, and it just makes it so much more convenient. So that URL is on the screen once again. If you want to check it out, it's coachparry.com/roadmap. We'd love to have you check it out. So we're getting some great results, and I know there were a lot of people on the broadcast tonight that are on the platform, and if you wouldn't mind letting us know in the comments what do you get out of the Coach Parry app, it would be hugely appreciated as well. And if this is your first webinar, or if it's your 10th webinar or 20th webinar, I always ask this at the end of them: what did you get out of tonight's presentation? What's the one thing that you're taking out that you're going to use over the next 4 weeks until we meet again, that's going to take you closer to your goal of Comrades 2020? So that's pretty much it for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to Bonitas for making these webinars possible, and as a sponsor of Comrades for making Comrades possible. If it wasn't for them, we definitely wouldn't be doing these. So massive thank you, and thank you to each and every one of you for spending the last hour and a bit with us. We do appreciate your time. We know things are busy. And then finally, Lindsay, thank you for your time. Parting shot from you.
Yeah, I think yeah, just don't get too carried away now. I know people, 1st of January comes around and suddenly it's comrade season and everyone gets that uncomfortable feeling in their stomach. Butterflies start to fly, but we do have time. So focus on the here and now, building blocks, tick off each session as you need to do it, and over the months you will build towards being able to do exactly what you want to do. And for those that are about to run their qualifiers, because there's a large number of people in Joburg that will be doing that for sure, and also other parts of the country. But if you are about to do your qualifier, good luck. I do hope it goes well and that you can then officially get your place on the start line for Comrades.
Awesome stuff. Until next time, remember the 10th of Feb is when we'll join you on the next Comrades Marathon webinar. From myself, Brad Brown, and the coach, Lindsay Parry, it's cheers.